Amandla. Amandla. Viva Aphrodite, viva. Viva Aphrodite, viva. Forward with reparations, forward. Thank you. I would like to join in the already established protocols. As I rise today in the year of reparations and reparative justice, not just to whisper, but to shout with clarity and conviction, the time for reparations is now, and the duty to legislate them lies with us, the young generation of parliamentarians. Let us begin by remembering how this story began. Colonialism was not simply an accident of history. It was a carefully designed system of exploitation, written into law and enforced through violence. At the Berlin Conference of 1884 and 85, European powers sat around a table in Berlin, carving up our continent as if it were a cake, codified it in the so-called General Act. Overnight, nations were partitioned, peoples separated, and sovereignty erased. The colonialists did not stop at borders. They imposed taxes and forced labor laws, designed not to build African societies, but to extract wealth for Europe. They used direct and indirect rule systems, ensuring that every corner of our continent was governed in service of foreign masters. They passed land and resource control legislation to dispossess Africans from their ancestral lands and to hand over our riches, which is the gold, the diamonds, the palm oil, to imperial companies. And let us not forget, the legal systems we still use in our countries today are built on this legacy of domination. The law was the colonialist weapon, so if oppression came to us through law, then reparations and reparative justice must also come to us through law. This is why I say, political speeches and rhetoric, it is not enough. We must legislate justice into reality. As Secretary General of the African Young Parliamentarians Network, that is a charge of young parliamentarians across Africa. We must push parliaments to establish dedicated reparations committees in each and every single nation, committees that will audit colonial era debts, expose them as illegitimate, and push for their cancellation. We must draft bills that enshrine reparations not as an option, but as a legal obligation for our states and the international community. We must go further still. Reparative justice must not only be demanded, it must be embedded in our national budget. When we reclaim the stolen resources from us, those resources must flow into free education, universal health care, decent housing, and modern infrastructure. Reparations must be visible in the lives of ordinary Africans. Only then justice will be more than words. But let me be clear, we cannot succeed as isolated nations. If the colonizers divided us in Berlin, we must unite under the banner of the African Union. We must take reparations into the heart of Agenda 2063, making it not a dream but a binding continental mandate. Together as one Africa, we must lobby the International Court of Justice and other forums to strike down colonial era treaties that still undermine our sovereignty and prosperity. We must speak the language the world understands, the language of power, resources, and leverage. Africa is not poor, Africa is rich beyond measure. Our cobalt powers batteries of electric cars. Our coltan and lithium fuel smartphones and renewable energy. Our oil, gas, and gold sustain global industries. Without Africa's minerals, the so-called developed world would collapse. So let us use this truth as leverage. We must form mineral alliances to demand fair prices and reparative clauses in every trade agreement. We must impose export restrictions until the processing is done on African soil, creating jobs for African youth instead of enriching foreign economies. We must negotiate trade deals that say clearly, if you want to have access to Africa's resources, you will pay the reparative price. And to those who say reparations are impossible, we must remind them of history. Germany has paid reparations to the Holocaust survivors. Namibia continues to press its claim against Germany for genocide. So if the reparations were possible for others, they are possible and they are necessary for us as Africa. We are not the generation of compromise. We are not the generation of silence. We are the generation of reckoning. So let this 5th edition of African Conference on Debt and Development be remembered as a moment we, the young, pledge to carry the struggle forward with fire in our hearts and law in our hands. For if colonialism was legal, then reparations must be law. And this is us, the youth of Africa, who must make it so. I thank you. Amandla.